A criminal trial opened on Tuesday for two key leaders of the trucker convoy protest from 2022, Tamara Lich and Barber. The case touches on some of the deepest political divides in Canada today. In opening statements, Crown Prosecutor Timothy Radcliffe said that Lich and Barber's political views are not what's on trial. The actions that occurred during their movement's occupation of the capital, however, were.
Ottawa police confirmed several criminal investigations underway tonight. The disturbing scenes sparking outrage and widespread condemnation include people dancing on the tomb of the unknown soldier at the National War Memorial and the statue of Terry Fox riddled with upside-down Canadian flags and protest signs. Police also investigating threatening behavior to officers, city workers, and others, along with damage to a city vehicle.
Lawyers for the defendants say this is really about Canadians' fundamental freedoms. Lawrence Greenspan, a prominent Ottawa lawyer representing Lich, said, quote, "In a contest between constitutionally protected freedom of assembly and freedom of expression and property rights that are not constitutionally protected, there is no contest," unquote. He also said that he took issue with the Crown's use of the word occupation in describing the protests.
The lawyers have said we are not going to relitigate the purpose of the Freedom Convoy. This is about whether or not two organizers who protested peacefully should be held criminally liable.
Initially, there were parts of Canada's Jewish community who sympathized with the truckers, though much of that goodwill soured after pictures emerged of flags with swastikas and Confederate symbols flying in the convoy. And the protesters continued equating of the requirement to show a proof of vaccination with the requirement of German Jews to wear a yellow star during the Holocaust. Even so, some Jewish Canadian support for the so-called Freedom Convoy has remained strong. This is the CJN Daily, sponsored by Metropia. Today on our show, Ellin Bessner speaks with two Jewish Canadians about what was behind their continued support for the truckers, how they viewed those waving the Nazi flag, and how the pandemic's economic fallout permanently impacted their careers. We originally aired this interview back in 2022, but with all eyes on Lich and Barber's trial, I think it's well worth coming back to. I'm Zach Kaufman, and this is what Jewish Canada sounds like for Wednesday, September 6th, 2023.
Beth David Hebrew School is now accepting new students. One of Toronto's most dynamic, egalitarian, conservative congregations is offering personalized Hebrew lessons, hands-on learning, exciting field trips, and small group activities, all with a hot dinner included. This is Jewish exploration that will last your children a lifetime. Classes run weekly on Monday nights from 5 to 7:15 p.m., starting September 18th. To learn more and enroll, visit bethdavid.com or email Adina, that's ADINA, at bethdavid.com.
They're not truckers. One is a goalie coach from rural Ontario who runs a hockey school, and the other is a Chabad rabbi whose day job is in IT with the Canadian government in Ottawa. They're both vaccinated, and they both support the truckers' protests, except for the Nazi flag and the other racist stuff. And they both reached out to the CJN to tell their side of the protest story. They want you to know that the pandemic mandates have cost them their livelihoods. It's kept one of them out of shul. And they both think a lot of other frustrated people feel like they do, that their freedoms have been curtailed for too long.
Ultimately, we're complaining about noise and verbal harassment, whereas I've lost my means of income and purpose. And when I say you can insert anybody here. I just happen to be the person that you're interviewing. And I'm not the only person like this. And that's who is ultimately at these convoys.
Ellin Bessner and Lonnie Schwartz don't know each other, but they both decided to go public after they heard Monday's episode that we did with Ariel Troster. She's the Ottawa woman who was fed up with what she called the occupation of her city by truckers, and she came on to explain why she marched in the counter-protests on the weekend. Ellin Bessner went down to Parliament Hill to see things for himself, to see whether the Freedom Convoy was indeed as full of hate and racism as he's seen in the news. The ordained rabbi lost his job with the federal government early in the pandemic, and he was off work for a year. In the meantime, he devoted his time to his art career, including painting pictures of the characters in the Israeli TV drama Shtisel. For his part, Lonnie Schwartz lives north of Belleville, Ontario, in Marmora, where repeated lockdowns have kept hockey arenas closed and kept the students in his hockey school off the ice and ate up his savings. We'll have both interviews. First, joining me now is Ellin Bessner from Ottawa, and then Lonnie Schwartz will come next. So let me ask you, what motivated you to go and see it firsthand instead of just staying home and away from all the craziness?
Well, I was motivated because I have been affected myself, as we all have, by the whole situation over the last 2 years, I should say.
Seems like 10 years. I get you.
Yeah, it seems like 10 years. But in a few ways, as well, religiously, as well as a Jew, it affected me. And I was actually encouraged by seeing that, because I do believe that a lot of our freedoms have been suppressed and curtailed, and it's necessary to speak up. The truth is, we live in a democracy where the government should have a certain checks and balances, as they say in the United States, and it seemed like there's no opposition. So there was no one speaking up for the other side to perhaps look more critically at the science, at the medical interventions and the lockdowns and the restrictions. So I really have felt that it is necessary for someone to speak up about these freedoms. We do have a Charter of Rights and Freedoms, ironically put together by the father of the current prime minister, and those seem to have been trampled without legislation, without discussion in Parliament. So that really concerned me.
I do have to jump in here with a point of order, as we say, and there were legislation passed, there were regulations debated in the House of Commons, as well as legislation passed in the provinces. So I just have to correct you on that point. But let's talk about, so you went down to the protests to talk to some of the people.
I watched one of the podcasts that you did with one of the counter protests, and she was saying how wonderful it is to be with other people outside and to gather together. So everyone is enjoying the ability to sort of get out of this prison that we've been into. And, the science, Omicron, what I've read and what I understand and what we've seen is it's much less virulent than it was initially. So there comes a time where the restrictions should end, in my opinion, and that's where all this has come about. Like, we've been questioning. Like, the Talmud says that one of the questions we're asked when we leave this world is, and it's very interesting. In addition to the fact, were we honest in business? Did we set aside time for Torah study? Another one is, that's not very well known, is, did we understand things within the matter? Hamevin davar mitoch davar. So I've read more than what the media shows, and I've been questioning. I mean, being a Jew means questioning. That's what the Seder is all about. And being a Jew means being free, not having the dominance of man over us, to have the ability to question. And I didn't see much of that coming. And I've been kind of restricted from my own shul to attend synagogue. And that's been difficult for me, painful for me,
Well, let's unpack what you mentioned. There's quite a bit here. First of all, you said that it's the vaccine mandates and lockdowns have impacted your business, your career. Describe what happened in your job.
Well, in my job, because of the security where I worked, I was not able to take my work home with me. It had to be contained in a secure area. So I was let go from my work for over a year. I've begun working again, this time from home with a different department. But so that had an impact, certainly. But you know what? Initially, when this first started, we didn't know what was happening. We all accepted the lockdowns, and that was fine. We understood something serious was happening. But then as time went on, we didn't see a relaxation of the restrictions, and that's what brought us to there. So, I mean, I'm working now, but I've only been working a couple of months. So it's been quite a long time that I was out of work. And that's my situation.
What did you do to get money and food in that time? Were you on CERB or
We
unemployment?
manage and we save. I did get a bit of CERB as well. I'm not the only income earner in the home, and I do some other things as well. So, we manage and we have our faith to keep us going, and we don't lose faith.
But in terms of vaccination, how did you navigate personally that requirement or that?
The vaccination was another issue that I had a problem with, but I did initially. My son is a doctor. He did encourage me to take the first one, but he was very much opposed to the other one. I forget the name now, but anyways, he told me to switch from the AstraZeneca. There was many issues with that initially, to switch to Pfizer. So I did that. And then I hesitated taking the second one. And I only took the second vaccine when I had a job offered to me. And I knew that I'd have to make a choice. So I did it unwillingly. I felt I was coerced to do it. We've been careful. We've been taking precautions and respecting people's spaces, etc.
You mentioned that going down to the protest was sort of freilich in a way. People were together. They were having a good time, as far as you saw, right?
There is a positive atmosphere. They're handing out food. I mean, I've never seen anything like this. What really concerns me is restrictions and mandates that I feel have limited. I'll tell you what happened. And I don't want to say where I go to synagogue, and obviously people who will watch this, if they know me, they'll know what I'm referring to. But I have to show my papers to go to pray in shul, and I had a big problem with that. Now, if the shul would have said, please only come if you're vaccinated, that's one thing. But they said that, plus I have to show my proof. They don't take my word for it. So in other words, I'm a member. I've been there many years. You don't trust my word. You need to see proof. Like, show me your papers. I have a very big problem with that. And you know what? And I understood there's older members who want to feel safe. They wanted to start doing a kiddush, So somehow maybe do that for the, But so I haven't gone to shul because I don't feel, in principle, that one should have to show their papers, medical papers, to go to shul. Anyways, and for me, I'm not able to drive to another place, where they maybe have more relaxed rules. So that was had a big impact for me, and still does. But other than that, I respect people's desire to feel safe, but there has to be a balance. I think there has to be a balance. I think we've been missing that balance.
Why did you decide to reach out and try to speak about this?
You invited me to speak, and I appreciate that. The convoy has invited me to speak. I don't know if I will. Maybe I will, preach a message of peace and positivity and connectedness and unity under God. We should, to be a Jew means to be free from the tyranny of man. That's what Exodus was all about. And we serve Hashem, we serve God, we don't serve mankind. And when it goes too far, when there's overreach, as they say, we should speak out and have a voice. And I hope the government will listen to the people and find a way to compromise, find a middle path,
And joining me now from Marmora, Ontario, is Lonnie Schwartz. Welcome to the CJN Daily.
It's nice to be welcomed.
What's your take on this truckers' protest?
Well, let's address the elephant in the room, shall we say. There was obviously objectionable flags present in the onset, and a lot of people at that protest recognized that right away and self-policed it, and obviously it's something our community feels strongly against. So I didn't choose to look at that as the example. I chose to look at the overall message, which in essence is co-opted. Right? People say that things get misappropriated. Well, this got misappropriated by tens of thousands, if not millions of Canadians now that aren't truckers, that are people much like myself, whose businesses for the last 2 years have ostensibly been closed because, let's face it, the federal government tends to dictate policy and then the provinces generally follow. I happen to be in Ontario, which has some of the strictest policies, not just in Canada, but in the entire developed world, in regards to the restrictions that they put in place. And that is something that kind of led us down this road, is that our prime minister, whose job, and this is his job, not to just listen to the people who voted for him, but as prime minister, to be the leader of every citizen. Doesn't matter who they voted for. And the fact is, there are tens of thousands of them in Parliament now and across the country that are just asking to be listened to. And what he's done effectively is malign them and name call. And that only furthers the divide by someone who is supposed to lead and unite. We want to understand why you keep insisting on being an outlier when the rest of the world seems to be finding a way to get along. Other countries that have similar socialized medicine policies, some of which have greater populations, the United Kingdom, and they've found ways to say, you know what, we've realized that the science has progressed and that we need to move forward in a pragmatic way.
I want to hear about your particular experience in the last 2 years and how it's impacted you and your business. But first, please tell us about your vaccination and your, boosters and what.
I did get vaccinated. I'm double vaccinated with the Moderna vaccine. I am fairly and appropriately saying that I'm a bit hesitant on getting a booster shot because I look at Israel that has had 4 shots in a year and they're still saying, well, this was not the efficacy we were promised at the very beginning. And I'm very pro-vaccine, in fact, right? Measles and polio is absolutely terrifying. And yet the most we do is if there's an outbreak, there's a little news alert on whatever news station you listen to that says, oh, if you were here, you might have been exposed to measles. Have a good day. So I'm not trying to minimize COVID. I understand it's very real. SARS-CoV-2 is a very real virus. And yes, people have gotten very sick out of certain age brackets, but that brings us to where I'm at. I work generally with children. I'm a goalie coach, and my general clientele are kids. And them being shut out of social activities, out of sporting activities, has had detrimental effects on them. This isn't just my opinion. And how it's affected my business ostensibly for 2 years is lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. What's the solution? Well, let's lock it down. Where are we going to lock it down? Well, we definitely need to lock down arenas and gyms. And we're sitting there going, what? And seeing that you can still pack however many people in Walmart with no consequence, but having 5 kids on the ice, 5 in an arena that is 200 feet long and 90 feet wide. So the optics of what keeps transpiring in regards to how they deal with this field, and I'm not the only one, like this is a cottage industry from coast to coast. And each province has had different lockdowns, but particularly here in Ontario, unless you found a way to break the law, then we were effectively shut out of our means of earning an income. And also, from a mental standpoint, our sense of purpose.
What did it cost you and how did you live for 2 years?
Tens of thousands of dollars. I've lost tens of thousands of dollars in revenue. And it's a fair question to ask because as the goalpost kept getting shifted, I had money saved. I had personal savings that I was like, okay, I don't need to take CERB. I don't need to take CERB. And then it was, oh boy, I definitely need to start considering CERB. And it's come to that point because with each lockdown, it's, well, I don't have any money left. And so there are other opportunities right now. I'm full disclosure. I am applying for certain Ontario grants that I'm supposed to qualify for, and that will provide me with some sense of financial relief. But again, the pattern has been, and I've had friends who say, well, it's not going to happen again. Well, we're 5 lockdowns deep. So I'm a little cynical when I hear we're not going to get locked down again.
And that's what Jewish Canada sounds like for this episode of the CJN Daily, sponsored by Metropia. Integrity, community, quality, and customer care. We're a proud member of the CJN Podcast Network. Our executive producer is Michael Freeman. Thanks for listening.
Jewish comedy legend Modi and Hasidic rapper Nissim Black are coming to Toronto to perform live at UJA's campaign launch on September 7th. Visit jewishtoronto.com to get your tickets today. Don't miss Modi and Nissim Black on September 7th. Go to jewishtoronto.com for your ticket today.